Hi, this is Debbie with Rocking Chair Quilts in Butler, Missouri, and we're ready to put our quilt together. So I've kind of been showing you along the way how to put your quilt together as we go if you're doing it just like the pattern says. So every time I've done 5 blocks, I've sewn them together into a row, and then I sew the rows together, and so there's no sashing. I'm getting ready to do the borders now. So it tells you what size to cut them if your quilt ends up being the size that it should be. But if you want to make sure it's the size it needs to be, you can measure your quilt, and it said I needed to cut the, let's see, the quilt center should be 72.5 by 60.5 at this point. And so I want to put my side borders on first. So I would want, it says to cut 2.5-inch strips, cut 8 2.5-inch strips. I did that. I sewed 2 together. I sewed 4 sets of 2 together. Now I'm going to take those, so I've got one here. I'm going to take those after I measure my quilt and cut them to the size they need to be. So I don't have a cutting mat that's 72.5 inches. So to do that, this is actually the width, isn't it? Yes. Okay, this is how wide. So I'll do that first.
So you have it folded. Okay.
I have it folded in half.
In the camera, I couldn't tell.
Yes. No, this is measuring 72.
That's
so
your.
This must be the length.
That's the length because you've got 3 blocks.
Yes.
And then 3 more blocks
That's
on
right.
the back side.
And I've got this half right here.
Yes.
Okay. So yes. So it does measure 36 and. So at 36 and about 1/4.
So that would be 72.5. Yeah.
And then I can do the same thing with this side.
Which would be the width.
Right. So I can fold it all together. Apparently I sewed this block on at one time and didn't take all my little threads out when I ripped it out. Oh, here. I haven't half yet. All right.
So half of the width is how much?
60 1/4. I mean, sorry, 30 1/4. So it's going to be 60.5.
Perfect.
So it turned out the size that it's supposed to be. So on here it says to cut from those 4 sets of 2 2.5-inch strips. Cut 2 2.5 by 72.5, and cut 2 2.5 by 64.5. Because after you have those 2 2.5-inch strips on the side, your quilt's going to measure 4 inches bigger, so that would make it 64.5. So the way I cut my strips, I don't, like I said, I don't cut them all the way out because I don't have a measuring cutting mat.
One of those
things
thingies.
called a cutting mat that is 64.5 inches long. So I will put one end at, I'll figure half of that. So that's half of 64 is 32, half of a half is 1/4. So did I say 62?
Yes.
Half of 64 is 32.
Oh, okay.
And half of a half is 1/4. So 32 1/4. But I'm going to pull it out to about 33. I'm going to start at 33. I'm going to go down here to 1, and then I'm going to fold it right before the edge. And I don't get it right on the line. I have it where I can see it because I know that that fold's going to take up a little bit of space. So then I bring it on down here, and I get it even with a line so I know it's going straight. Okay, so I can see my, I don't know if you can zoom in on that and see that. See, I don't have it right on it. I have it right next to it because, like I said,
so you can still see the red line.
Right, that fold's going to take up a little bit of that.
Yep.
You know, it's not lying flat. So I bring it over here, and now I want to cut it at 32 1/4. I was going to get a smaller ruler, but this one will work.
Now, is that 2 strips sewn together?
Yes, this is 2 strips sewn
Okay.
together. And instead of just folding it in half and then having 2 little pieces left over, I take the one end that I'm going to be cutting and do a little bit longer than what I need it. Bring it down here and then fold it onto itself. That way I have a bigger piece that I can use for something else if I want to, instead of having 2 little chunks.
And it also keeps your seam not quite in the center,
Right.
but
I don't
it's
want that
not
seam right in the center.
not real close to one of the edges either.
Right. So my seam is right here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I hate it when the seam ends up being like an inch from the edge,
Right.
because then it looks like you messed up.
Now on the top and the bottom, the seam will be about in the same place. I don't care.
No,
So they're not even going to be next to one another.
No.
Okay, so there's my other 64.5-inch strip. I've got the other two cut. So all I have left to do now is sew my 74.5-inch strips, one on each side. And I press open, so I would just press those open as well. A lot of times they have you press to the border, or you can press away, but then you have all those seams. So it's just easier. I know it's white, but it's easier to do. It's easier to just press it toward the border. So I'll press those out, and then I'll sew the top and the bottom on, and it's good to go.
Can I share how I would have done it?
Yes. So Lisa would not have done it this way.
I would have sewn 2 strips together, sewn it down the side, and then clipped it off even with the end of the quilt. It fits perfectly every time.
Every time.
Whether it's square or not, something else, but that's how I do it.
Okay, also I start by pinning this. Here's another thing I can do. I start by pinning the ends onto the corners first. I find the middle and pin it in the middle, and then I kind of work my way from the middle to the end on each side. And I pin it because I want my little, if I have little points, I want them to stay pointy. So that's how I do whenever I pin it on. So there's that too.
Sounds good. You've got some borders to sew on.
Okay, and thanks for joining us for this sew along. It was really a lot of fun, and Lisa made me get it done in a month, and that's awesome.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Hi, this is Debbie from Rocking Chair Quilts in Butler, Missouri, and Lisa's here with me, and you're going to see her in a little bit. We've got our quilt finished. I got the borders on, so we're all finished with Stitch Pink. Lisa's going to talk to you in a little bit about ideas of how you can quilt it. Another thing I wanted to bring up was to thank Ryan Wolf, who put all of our videos together. He did an awesome job, and
we have no idea how to do that.
We can't thank him enough. He just did a wonderful job getting them posted for us and getting them together, so we couldn't have done this without him.
So thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. All right, Lisa's going to step in and talk about ideas of how you could quilt this. So
Yes.
I'll let her take over.
I have a long arm quilting machine, and I always like to look at the quilt ahead of time and decide some of the designs that I'm going to do, because I would do something different in every block. I do not do edge to edge quilting. If you're going to quilt yours with edge to edge, you can go ahead and turn off the video, because that's not what I'm going to talk about. All of these blocks have potential for some fun things in them, and that's what I like to do. Like this one here. Obviously you need a flower, or maybe come in and do some curls in this. The blades would let you come down and do a curl on the blade. In the house block, you can do some little scallops and give it a roof with shingles. You could put curtains in the windows. Just any little detail like that in your quilting, just I think adds to a quilt. Some basic things you can do over here. I like to bounce the corners for triangles. You just kind of round your path and do both sides, and then come back.
So you do it in the background one and the colored one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a continuous design, and it fills the space, quilts it down nicely, and gives it some texture.
Okay.
Anytime there's a row of squares like that, I like to bounce them, just because it makes them look a little puffy, but still follows the design. So you would just come from this corner to this corner to this corner to this corner to this, and just back. And then when you get clear to the bottom, you just come back up the other side.
Okay.
Makes it fun and easy. Something I like to do in triangles is to come in and do a curl that does this way, trace it back out, do a curl that comes in this way. So it almost looks like a heart in your triangles that way. You can do that on the big triangles too. Anytime there's a square in the center, I put some kind of motif. It can be something simple, like just coming in and doing a spiral and then tracing it back out. You could go in and put feathers on that, or flower petals.
And what about that basket right there, Lisa?
Oh yes, in the basket. This is the perfect space to quilt some little flowers. So you just draw some flowers and put them in that basket. Bounce the triangles and that one would be done. These are fun to treat as half, So you can treat this half as something and this half as something else of that log cabin, like put in something that fills the space of just the white, and then go back over here on the pink and do the same thing and fills in the space on the pink, and that looks really neat too. Basically that's what I would do with those. The applique, I would either come in here and do a curl like this, and then maybe put a curl off this way.
That'd be very pretty.
Give it some little viney curl things. These I think are supposed to be leaves, so you might come in and do some lines in the leaves to kind of make it more leaf-like. That's all I'm thinking of right off the top of my head.
Okay.
The background filler, you can do it with stippling if you choose.
Pebbles, I like pebbles.
Pebbles. You can do lines that just go back and forth this way, and then on the opposite block or the block next to it, go this way. That kind of looks fun too. Play with your quilting on it, because this is going to be a fun quilt to quilt. And did you have anything more to say?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us and watching our tutorials for this Moda Stitch Pink project. It was a lot of fun to do. It's the first time we really ever did tutorials on blocks like that, and we're looking forward to doing some more. So
if you have ideas, put them on as a comment and we'll look at your ideas.
Yeah.
And thanks again from Lisa and Debbie at Rocking Chair Quilts in Butler, Missouri.
Yes, thanks. Bye.